an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
Welcome again to another exciting episode that we are covering in this special series of episodes on empowering women. We have been running this special series of episodes for the last few months, and I've got really good response on this one. And in fact, we might have a few more speakers lined up in this special series ahead. If George wasn't knowing that, this is a surprise. You might see more female faces coming ahead. As we got feedback on the podcast that we should be having more women faces coming ahead, and rightly so. We always believe in equality in all aspects. And today's topic is the way moving forward for women in Afghanistan. We've got a repeat guest almost after 2 years. When we started off this podcast 2 years ago, Maryam joined us 2 times. And this is the 3rd time on the podcast. We have not had a lot of repeat guests. But Maryam, you are one of the only ones who has accepted our invite to come again. So thanks again for doing that, first of all.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's good to be back.
Well, Maryam, to start off with, I want to give the floor to you to kind of give our audience an idea of on today's topic, and how are you doing with Afghan women on the move? What are your current measures that you have been taking in the recent times, since the time we last chatted? That would be good to start off with.
Thank you. Yeah, with the update from my end or our end from Afghan Women on the Move, we are doing pretty good. The organization now is 4 years old, and we have been able to have our outreach office in Canberra and Brisbane. We have been able to secure some fundings as well to deliver capacity building programs, which we were quite successful on doing that. From that connection and building more trust within the community, Afghan community, and outside of our community in terms of both mainstream and multicultural communities, we have been able to connect and do a lot of collaborative and partnership work as well. So I feel like Afghan Women on the Move, despite that is being so young, but because of my own also personal experiences and the knowledge and the work that I've been doing in the community sector for the past 20 years, we have been able, and the people that work with me, the people that are volunteering with me, they made an enormous, they show us enormous support and help to make sure that this organization is thriving and moving forward.
Yep. So how has the situation of women in Afghanistan changed in the last 2 years, Maryam? Has there been a substantial change in how the Taliban is now treating women, or is it still the same?
If I compare it from 2 years ago, it's gone from back to worse. Afghan women hasn't been very lucky, or haven't been very lucky to have that secure and safe country for them, no matter under which government they were. But with Taliban, because of their views, their extreme views on women, things are gone really bad, both for Afghan women, emotionally, psychologically, socially, economically, from every aspect. They have been deprived to be themselves and to be heard and to be seen. And just because Afghanistan is no longer killing people on suicide bombings, or there's no much physical fightings in Afghanistan, people are dying of economic disasters, and women and young people are, they've been in a space where they just don't want to leave. And I don't want to say this because I don't want them to give up on hope, and they have to keep fighting. But things are going really, really distressing for Afghan women because they can't afford anything to leave for themselves.
So before I pass it on to George for any questions, Mariam, I want to understand from you what can be done to make sure that we can improve the lives of women in Afghanistan. Last time we chatted, and we all suggested a lot of moves which we can take from our side, sitting here in Australia, or people from other countries can take. Um, but I think it's also about the Taliban taking the initiative to make sure that they improve from their side, because they are the one running the country at the moment, isn't it?
They're running by force. They're running without any mission and vision for their people. So running countries doesn't mean that if you don't have a vision and a roadmap for your citizen, and to include everybody, to have inclusive government, to value every people, every breathing person and things in your country, then it's not sustainable. So Taliban may be there for now, for being there for 2 years, maybe another couple of months, another couple of years. But how they're going to run a country with half of its population has been deprived, how much they're going to wait for women like myself to pay my tax from foreign countries to go to them. And Australia has been involved in Afghanistan for the past 20 years, and still are sending aids to Afghanistan. And if Taliban had any sense, they see it. They should know that women are working in countries like this for us to be able to send aids. So in my country, the Afghan woman cannot work, but in foreign countries, I have been able to work and now pay my tax for my country, to pay donation and aids to war-torn countries. So yeah, I don't. I hope that things gets better for Afghanistan and Afghan women. But the way Taliban are viewing humans and humanitarian work, or and women in particular, they're not going to go very far with this mind. Yeah, as a government.
So passing on to George, on this one, George, we always love to help people. You have been running a charity for homeless people, and we have been trying to help a lot of people in the startup world through our podcast. What kind of things do you think people from outside can do to help Afghan women?
I think one of the things that we should be doing is something that as human beings we're quite often not very good at doing. And that is, we should be talking to people like Maryam. We should be talking to people that are raw, coming from Afghanistan. Because me thinking about what I'm going to do to help Maryam solve a problem in Afghanistan is just crazy. We need to understand from the perspective of the people that are there. And I know Maryam's here, not necessarily in Afghanistan, but she would have a far stronger and a closer connection to people over there than what we do. And I think one of the things that we could do is maybe give it some consideration, like everybody did Ukraine. See, Russia went 5 steps towards Ukraine, and all of a sudden the world wanted to unite, and the world wanted to send things over, and the world wanted to do this, and the world wanted to do that. And at the very same time, we're almost walking, some would say, Maryam, running away from Afghanistan. So I think that there's a great concern and a risk that, again, the outside world will decide what the inside needs without consulting the people inside. And so I'd like to see more people like Maryam be given a voice, and more people like her be able to get onto a stage, so that those of us that don't really understand and we don't, but care, and we do, could then start to work out how do we actually do something that's meaningful.
Yes, and if I may add on what George has said, and thank you, George, for the voice, while we are talking, while we are screaming, while we are crying, we need action as well. That collective action by international communities, by people that needs to get things done. We have been talking about Afghanistan even prior to Taliban, the Doha Agreement, the international communities, the millions and billions of dollars that spent it on those roundtables with all those formalities that were involved. We were thinking for the first 21st century that things with talking and negotiations, things will get better. But look, we are on ground zero. So there is something wrong. Something is not happening. Something is not happening willingly from top down. From bottom up, we've done everything. As a community, we have done everything. But I strongly believe that now it is a responsibility of our international leaders, those that make deals on countries that they make benefits at the time they need from them, regardless of who they are. But they have to consider that those countries, the common people of those countries, suffers for the rest of their lives. They're taking people's women's husband, they're taking kids' parents, they're taking brothers and sisters and wives and loved ones due to their war and greeds. So yes, we need voices, we need Maryams to talk, we need everybody to talk about so the conversation doesn't die and people doesn't get silent on issues. But at the same time, we need action, and those action needs to be done by our people that are quite powerful, and and we have to collectively fight for the justice.
Yep. And I think that's what I meant, because when I'm saying that people from outside should be helping them out, it's more about providing them with the tools and the understanding to see the lens from outside as well. Because consider yourself being in Afghanistan right now, where you are suffering the tortures of Taliban. You don't know how to come out of it because you haven't seen the outside world. We have seen the outside world, they haven't seen it. So what tools or knowledge can we provide them so that they have a wider perspective? Unless they decide that, okay, let's leave Afghanistan, go to a country like Australia, like what Maryam did. Not everyone can afford to do that, or not everyone might want to do that and leave their families, right? And I think that's where broader level of understanding and tools need to be provided. What do you think about that, Maryam?
I believe, yes, tools, and one of the biggest factors is education in Afghanistan. The education didn't get to the rural areas. Afghanistan, both politically and socially, are quite complex country. And we still have, people that, in our rural areas that never been to school, both men and women in Afghanistan. So when they are deprived from education, when they're deprived from knowing, as you said, not knowing what the outside world look like, when they don't know even about themselves, who they are, and it blindly follows religion, blindly follows culture, blindly follows themselves, then they become just a followers of day and night. And that's pretty much most of Afghans were suffering and are suffering from this isolation in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is the only country to still have cases of polio, and Afghanistan is the only country that the women are not allowed to go to school. Afghanistan is the only country that their men have very extreme views on women activism or women empowerment, women even health and well-being. I cannot just say that let's go talk to them and talking will do things, but I guess we have to be carefully crafted our aids and resources and how we're going to do things on the ground, bottom up and top down, both together, to make that tangible result that we are looking for. Because from what I have seen in the 24 years of living in Australia, that I was exposed a lot to many factors and places, that what has happened here and what has happened in Afghanistan. A lot of people are working in isolation, both from government perspective and also communities. So until we don't do some collective work for the sake of people, for the sake of humanity, nothing will change.
You had a follow-up question on that, George?
Maryam, if there's people watching this who are not in high places, they're not in positions of authority, and they're saying, well, this is all well and good, but what do I do? What can I do? I'm just Mary or Joe or George or Sharon. What can I possibly do? I'm just me and one voice. What would be some things that you would ask the general population, be they the older ones or the younger ones? What are some of the things that they could do to start to make a difference?
Well, if they are in contemporary societies, like countries, the modern Western countries, and listening to this, they can be our alliance. They shouldn't assume just because Maryam is from Afghanistan, she only needed to be saved and have food on her table here in Australia. I am more than that. I'm like other women that have blonde hair and blue eyes and have all the facilities and all the privileges that were available for them, and they thrive well. I've done well, and millions of other women around the world, Afghan women and young men and men that were looking for better life for themselves, they did well. So they have to go and ask, what do they need? They have to come and ask me. For example, for Afghan women on the move, we need mentors, we need volunteers, we need leadership programs, we need fundings, we need people to come on board and lead an idea on a program. Because what has happened, that these 45 or now 50 years of war in Afghanistan disabled mentally the Afghan people, both male and females that are out of Afghanistan. They're so traumatized, they're so dismotivated to think for themselves. So that's why we need to kind of get together, ask questions, don't assume to refugees, not just from Afghanistan, but from any part of the world, that they only need to be safe. Once you save them, you help them to thrive. From survival to thriving is very important. But if you don't invest in that thriving, journey, then you won't see any progress. And then obviously somebody will come and say, oh, refugees are not good, or they don't do anything. But trust me, everybody needs a pillar of support. Everybody needs somebody to hold their hands, especially if they have been through so much, and they are being abused, they're traumatized. The scars that hurts needs to be healed with love and understanding.
Very good.
And I think George runs his own foundation called the Ross Hutchison Foundation. And I think, George, you might be wanting to help her outside of this podcast, I'm sure, through the work that you're putting on for Ross Hutchison, and possibly a collaboration, which can help Afghan women who are coming here as a refugee, or maybe who are currently there and who might need some sort of help.
Yeah. But when you talk about you need mentors, what does that look like? What do they do? What are they mentoring, and who are they mentoring?
We have different cohort of people that we are serving, especially females. Females that have been quite skillful in Afghanistan and before they came here, and all of a sudden the language barrier made it so difficult to tap on those skills and grow. And we have another set of cohort in Afghan community that young girls or in boys that are in high schools and universities, but because of the financial difficulties that the parents cannot afford to give them extra tutoring and things that they can get extra help to do better at school and universities. We're looking for the tutors to help our students, especially year 11 and 12, and also the university student, especially when they are in the year, the first semester or first year of university. A lot of women struggles and they drop out because they can't do it, and some of them they intentionally do it because they don't want to embarrass their parents by keep asking them that go and borrow money and give us tutoring. So that also, but also in terms of otherwise we also require women and men in our communities to do volunteer work with us, to keep things happening, keep things moving forward, and be a mentor of teaching. This is how a program runs. This is how you do project management. This is how you run an event. What does it mean to do volunteer work? What does it mean to do fundraising? How does it happen? How do you do it? These things need a bit of help. We take it for granted here. For those of us that studied here and have done a bit of work, and kind of it comes like a second nature to do an event. I can do an event tomorrow morning, but because you already have established your stuff, right? But when you do it at a bigger scale, or if you're new in the country and if you want to contribute, you need sometimes there's one-on-one mentors and friends to help you.
I was reading about something, Maryam, which is related to the mental health of Afghan women, which has kind of deteriorated over the last few years. Mental health is always a very serious discussion to talk about. We keep on talking about mental health here in Australia, in a developed country where we already have all the facilities, for which sometimes we don't feel gratitude about. But thinking about the mental health of the women who are facing the tortures back in Afghanistan, I think it's a serious issue. How do you see that being tackled in the next 1 year or so? Because mental health is such an important issue, because people don't feel it openly, to talk about it openly in the public, isn't it?
Yes, because of with mental health issues and also domestic violence, these two topics are very close to my heart for so many reasons. But mental health has quite has a stigma in the community because, as you said, here we suffer. Mental health and domestic violence just can happen to anybody, right? But from countries like Afghanistan there's never been a conversation about it. So if somebody suffers from mental health issue, even if it's not very severe and it's depression or anxiety or PTSD and all of that, because that stigma of being called crazy or being called that, oh, she's suffering from all these mental health issues because she's cursed. And she was a bad woman, or he was a bad man. That's why God, put him in this situation. So those cultural blames and stuff like that made it quite hard for people to seek help. And the other factors is the language barrier and the right process and referrals that when multicultural communities goes and seek help. So there is a huge gap between addressing the issues in more appropriate and culturally sensitive manners. I have worked in that space, and both for multicultural and mainstream organizations. Both domestic violence and mental health hasn't been addressed culturally appropriate. When I'm saying culturally appropriate, it's not that we want to send them to somewhere to say, oh, you will be fine, just go and do some more extra prayers. I'm not talking about that type of sensitive cultural stuff. I am more about to understand them, why it's happening to them and what stops them to be more open about their needs. Because until they don't see it and they don't feel it, they don't have words for their feelings, it will be a long process to address that for them. And I don't think that Australian health system has been equipped to kind of, cater everything for everyone.
Yep. So we have also been hearing about things like there have been torches against women recently in Afghanistan. A lot of women's beauty salons have closed down recently. Um, there have also been cases where they have been restricted to enter into schools and colleges because that's how the culture was 20 years ago. So it's been like they have taken the culture back from 2022 back to 2002, which is absolutely embarrassing, I would say, thinking it from our lens here, isn't it, George?
I think the Western world's it should hang its head in shame. From what I'm understanding and from what I've been told, we basically, what the hell were we doing there? Because what did we actually achieve and what did we actually do, and where are we to where this all started? My understanding from Maryam is that we have in actual fact gone back. It just seems to me that I don't know, we just sort of, well, if we all turn away and don't look, it didn't happen. And it's, yeah.
I think it's because also we never asked the Australian when they moved to Afghanistan, as Afghan citizen, as somebody that equally feels that I have the love and care for this country. I never been asked why people are going and what needs to be done. Nobody asked women like me or men like my husband or the kids or my father and everybody that what do you need in your country? How does things happen? How do I get to the heart and minds of people that to shift their minds so they think for themselves, so they think for the betterment of their life, not for us to go top down and say, this is how you live your life. It's artificial. It's kind of sugarcoating situations. That's why when the government got messed up and all this stuff happens, people were not equipped to ask for themselves. People were not equipped to think for themselves. So while there was a food on the table for them, like kind of spoon feed, they were there, and then that's gone. So they waited for the next government or next person to feed them again. So it is like, it's sad to see what has happened, and it's sad that it's happening. Taliban, they don't have their own talent and skills. Most of them probably they don't even can write and read. They feeding on international aid's money. They're feeding on people like me that paying tax, like you guys paying tax, and they have no shame to take my money, but they have shame for me to be seen and to be heard, and women like me to even work for themselves. In Afghanistan, the salon that got closed, those were not salons like here. Most of the salons were run by women that they were the only breadwinners at their homes. Their salons were at the front. We have backyard that we do our things in our backyard. In Afghanistan, is vice versa. Your life is in your front yard. So their homes, their businesses were at their front yard, and they were functioning from there. All of a sudden, everything. And one of the excuses were that the man cannot afford. And I said, why your man cannot afford? You should economically build your country for the man to pay for their wife's beauty stuff to go. And if that makes her feel good, why not? What is so hard for a man to pay for a wife's hair color? I can say a lot, but it is sad to see how their mind works. And on one hand, they take aids from women like me and any women, and on the other hand, at home they don't let their wives to be seen and to work and everything. I don't know how they think about this aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a bit surprising, Maryam, because we see that we have completed recently 100 episodes of Ultimate Global Podcast. We've crossed 2 years, but I would assume that the discussions involving Afghanistan haven't moved forward at all since the time we last chatted. I don't see there has been anything which has improved. The only thing which I can see is the developed countries have started taking refugees into their countries, and they've started to work on those kind of visas. But what has been done to eradicate the core foundation of the issue? I assume nothing.
That's right. And nobody wants to leave their homes. If I had peace in my country, and if I had the love that I experienced when I was young before the war, I cannot imagine I would have left Afghanistan if I had the freedom to grow as a Maryam like now, right? The blue sky, the green grass, the trees, the air, the water, it's all the same. It's only the freedom, the love, the support that makes your country better and worse. And war takes so much from you. So for me, Afghanistan, yes, hasn't gone progressed. Things gone really bad in the past, from bad to worse in the past 2 years. But one thing that made us more stronger, that women like me, younger women like me, older women like me, they are questioning things. Before they were not questioning. I wasn't questioning things. I was leaving as well in a hope that, yes, now international communities in my country, America, because we see America so powerful, America's there and universities are there, things are getting better. But then you realize that they only teach you, or they only do things that to kind of map your mind to be dependent. Now I'm going to teach my kids to think independently, to face their mistakes, but still keep moving forward, to make the change they want to see for themselves. So Afghan women, Afghan young men and women in Afghanistan, common people of Afghanistan, regardless who they are, they should think for themselves. They should believe that they can make their homes, starting with their homes, a better place. And they shouldn't move for Taliban or anybody else to make their homes nicer for them, because nobody can shape and bring love and bring reality to your life unless you don't feel it and work for it.
Did you have any final questions for Maryam, George?
Yeah. Do you feel that with what's happened, the way the West has deserted the responsibility, do you feel that it's actually put the cause back, and it's almost like it's harder to restart it than had it not been started and faltered in the first place?
I think they had no plan when they first went. They had no kind of medium to long-term kind of map in their mind that why they are going there. Are they just following blindly the Americans? Because they did it, it was just a fashion to go that, oh, we are helping this poor country. Afghanistan is quite known country, despite it is the poorest country, but it's in the heart of Central Asia. So they're politically also motivated. They didn't go for me. They didn't go for, women like me. They went for whatever they wanted to achieve. And if they have achieved it, that's why they have left. But they haven't achieved it and found it so difficult because of all these aspects and complication, then they have left, or everybody left. And so I guess I don't know what else to say. That look, if they were making any improvement, Taliban wouldn't have come back. So they literally took us from Taliban number 1 and give us to Taliban number 3, number 2. I don't know, God forbid it's gonna go worse than Taliban number 3. I'm not sure, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult for our people.
Thank you so much, Maryam. I really appreciate you spending time with us this evening. And both George and I feel really connected to your story. That's why we always love to have a chat with you. It's not about just having you on here like any other guest, but we really feel connected to your struggles and the pain that you have gone through, and the kind of work that you are doing. So we would be trying our best to help you out in any possible way outside of this podcast as well. And I will definitely make sure I already have a contact in my mind, which I'm going to refer to you tomorrow in the morning. I'm sure George will also be doing the same through his foundation to help you out in whatever way he can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your advice, both. And I also genuinely feel that when common people and people that move and shakes things on the ground, eventually it takes, kind of moves in. So let's keep moving forward and shaking things, and hopefully we will see a change. If not us, maybe our children. So I have a hope.
This is an ultimate global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our special weekly podcast on trending international and social affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kaura and George Mavros from Sydney.